Hi, and welcome to the Reloading Podcast. Tonight, it's episode 9, and Jim and I are continuing our walk down Reloading Lane, where we continue to go step by step, discussing how you safely and carefully reload your cartridges. So, Jim, what'd you do in firearms this week?
Well, as everyone that even close to the reloading room knows, I attended a pistol league banquet over the weekend, and much to my surprise, I did fairly well for my score level, my average, if you want to call it that. I scored first place in my division. In the pistol. Yep, I'm kind of tickled with that.
I just kind of putzed around with some reloading stuff. Got a new catalog in from Precision Reloading, so I'm drooling over all the fun stuff that I'm going to be doing there, and been trying to find some 17 Hornet for a coworker of mine that's been looking, and we haven't been able to find anything. So it looks like he's going to be searching for some dies and some brass. He had a Savage that he had that was a 22 Hornet. He had it rebarreled for a 17. So.
Wow. Well, the other thing
moving though.
Yeah, oh yeah. The other thing I did was I sold a bunch of raffle tickets for that 17 HMR Savage that my gun club is trying to get raffled off.
Oh, nice.
Yep, I sold all my tickets. And it's a little Savage. I think it's a Savage 93 with a 3-9 scope. And, you know, I try to live and breathe Second Amendment every day.
Absolutely. That's what we all try and do. That Savage 93 is actually a really nice shooter. It's just a sweet tack driver. I've got one of myself with a bull barrel on it. And 5 shots at 100 yards, all touching. It's just fabulous. So.
I just posted the link to the Reloading podcast on my personal Facebook page too.
Awesome.
Maybe we'll pick up somebody to take and try to come into the podcast. Who knows? Or at least we'll pick up a couple listeners, maybe.
Indeed. So, well,
is there any possibility of knowing how many folks have actually downloaded a copy of the podcast, or do we have that technology built up yet?
Because we're not posting it on iTunes with our own separate iTunes feed, it is kind of hard.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's one of the things that's in the works. Unfortunately, Jake's been busy with a bunch of stuff, so he hasn't gotten everything done yet. So.
Okay.
But we're working towards it. So. Well, we're talking about case prep, and now we're talking about priming.
Yep, but do believe we've got just about everything covered as far as the procedure for getting your brass ready. With this, I just want to go over really quickly the single reminder that no matter what you do, you've got to make sure your primer pocket flash is clear. Otherwise, you'll have an obstruction in there, and the flash will not go through the hole, and it will not ignite the powder. Then you've got a dud.
Yep, and that's no fun.
No, that's actually quite dangerous.
Yeah, I've had quite a few questions, or quite a few instances where there's been some issues when I've been cleaning that I find out stuff.
Yes, sir. But anyway, so the next and final thing you'd have to do, I'd mentioned before about very slightly chamfering the inside of the case mouth, but the one thing I think we forgot to cover was removal of the crimp on military brass. What that is, what you're going to see is on the brass, after you knock out the primer, you're going to see an extremely sharp square edge instead of a nice true radius or a smooth chamfer, a little bevel on the inside edge of that primer pocket, at the mouth of the primer pocket, not down on the bottom where the anvil and cup rest.
Yeah, there's quite a few different tools that can be used for cleaning that out. I haven't had to purchase one yet. What do you use? I know Lyman makes one.
Generally speaking, I have both tools, what you're talking about. Sorry, I just didn't, segue right over into that. But anyway, no, I have an RCBS primer pocket swaging kit, and what that does, it takes a button that's exactly the right diameter, has a nice radius or nice fillet, it's called, on the side of the button, and what you're actually literally doing is you're pushing that button up into the primer pocket. Once it's started, you apply a little bit of pressure from the ram of the press up into the bottom of the primer pocket. Well, what this does is, of course, it lifts it up towards the top. You have to take and put it up against what you would normally call the decapping spindle, except this is the spindle that actually hits the bottom of the case on the inside of the firing chamber. The top of the web, the top of the mouth of the case being the top of the case being the top. Excuse me, I'm disorganized tonight. Anyway, this decapping, or this support spindle, goes down inside the mouth of the case and goes against the inside of the web of the case. You've got your swaging going up inside the primer pocket, and when the meet, you start to apply some pressure to the rim of the crimp, the sharp square I alluded to earlier. You're actually starting to move some metal. You're displacing the metal slightly with pressure. That's why it's called swaging.
Okay.
Then the second tool that, Mike, you asked me about is I also use my case mouth deburring tool for removing primer pocket crimp. That'll leave a nice, like a 45-degree chamfer on there, but you got to be careful. You don't want to get too deep, because you could actually wind up with too much of your primer pocket unsupported, not supporting the primer itself properly.
And then you've got to blow out, and you're going to wind up with problems that way.
That's right.
Up to and including pushing the primer out the back of the case.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're talking about pierced primers and stuff like that, and that's it. That makes it look like you've got excessive pressure, and that may not be the case. Primer actually blows out the back of the case, it expands, and it flattens it. It looks like you've got excessive pressure when you may not, simply because the primer wasn't properly supported by the walls of the primer pocket.
Yeah. All right.
After that, I do believe we're ready to start putting primers in.
Okay. I have a Lee Auto Prime 2, I believe is what it is.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of their newest one is the Auto Prime XR, which, or I mean, mine isn't quite as nice as the Auto Prime XR. So
okay, this Lee Auto Prime tool you're talking about, is it the one with the square primer magazine?
No, mine is the round one.
Okay.
So mine's a little older version.
Okay, my Auto Prime, my first generation Auto Prime, I'm not sure what the difference is between the Auto Prime 2 and the first one, but we did talk about that. If you're going to take and prime cases individually and not in a press, personally, I think that is the best way to go, because you get feel with every primer you seat. You get to feel from your right or left thumb, whichever thumb you're using to drive it down. But the thing is, folks, you got to remember what you're trying to feel is you're trying to feel the anvil hit the bottom of the case. You're not trying to take and flatten the primer. You're not trying to seat the primer so deep that the lever actually touches and bottoms out. It doesn't have to touch and bottom out. If you go into Richard Lee's book, Modern Reloading 2, he goes into a really cute story about a guy he really liked a lot, and he had a hard time keeping from having fits in front of the poor guy, because the guy was just like a gorilla. He kept breaking his priming tool because he kept bottoming it out, bottoming out the lever. That's not what you do. You trying to bottom the primer, and that's what you need to try to feel. It's just a very little subtle pressure change, and once you feel that, you know you've got everything seated right. I like my Lee Auto Prime.
Yeah. in the joining us on the question and answer chat is Mace Ward, and he says he uses a Wilson deburring tool to get rid of that military crimp. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Hey Mace, how you doing, man? Connecting to Google. But anyway, yeah, the Wilson deburring tool is quite a good one. But there are any number. Most all of the deburring tools are good for removing crimp. But I see you. There you are, Mace. Good to see you, man. I haven't spoke with Mace probably 2 years. He's one of the early members of the Reloading.
Awesome. I'll definitely thank for tuning in. And this is what we kind of want, is more people tuning in and joining in on the podcast with as we're going.
There are Wilson, Sinclair, RCBS. They both make. Sinclair International makes just about all the reloading manufacturers make their own off-the-press reloading system. You can reload on the press, which is not really considered to be the best way to do it, but like with a progressive, you have to. But if you reload off the press, you're always going to get a better feel for what you're doing, as far as feeling the primer to actually feel the anvil contact the bottom and feel a little bit of pressure or stress being applied. But anyway, you feel a little bit of pressure into the priming compound pellet. I see somebody.
Welcome, Mace.
How's it going, guys?
Doing well.
Haven't seen you. I apologize, Mace. I don't have a webcam.
Hey, no problem.
My webcam will not work, and I keep forgetting to take in this last 2 weeks. I kept forgetting to look into buying a new one.
Yeah, we actually, there's a group of us that do a gunsmith chat on Sunday nights, and we usually start about 8 o'clock, and kind of the same type of deal where we get together and we'll pick a topic and talk about, like tonight it was rimfire. Okay. And people can call, they can ask their stuff, and we just got done, and I saw you guys are getting your stuff going, so just wanted to say hi. I'm glad you guys are getting this up and going. Again, it's a good thing. Really good thing.
So, Mace, you got all sorts of fun stuff behind you.
Oh,
do some gunsmithing?
Yeah. We do reloading, firearms instructor, gunsmith work. Do a little bit of it all.
Awesome.
A lot of fun. I tell you, going to the reloading stuff, you're talking about how we enjoy it. Of all the things that I do that have to do with the industry and the sport, reloading is probably my favorite thing to do. I enjoy sitting there pulling that lever more than anything else that I do. And I'll reload ammo and not even have the time to go shoot. It's just the fact that I enjoy doing it. And I can't really figure out why. I can't put my finger on why I like it. It is challenging. You have to be in your P's and Q's. But for some reason, I enjoy it.
I know the answer.
Yeah.
It's peaceful.
Yeah, it is.
There is that. It's called the Junkie Blues.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly what you talk. The calm that you get at a constant repetition. That somehow a lot of folks have told me about how that repetition, that rhythm that they generate, somehow or another just soothes their emotions. Because you've got to take a stick, you've got to stay focused, and something pleasant that you like, and there it is. It's like Nirvana.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's yep. You get to escape. I've got my stuff set up and out in the garage, so it's a chance to escape from everything that's going on in the house, the kids, the wife, the dogs, and everybody, and just kind of go out there. And usually I don't even turn music on. I mean, most of the time when I'm doing something else out in the garage, I'll turn music on, but when I'm out there reloading, it's just a matter of the noise from what I'm doing, and it's just it's truly relaxing.
Yeah,
I've run into the same thing when I'm casting. I get a good rhythm going. I've got the mold good and hot. I know just about when to put lead in so that the pot can actually melt the lead without interfering with my rhythm. And it's pretty much the same thing. It's just very simple. You break the sprue, you drop your bullets, You take and close it up, make sure everything's clean and all that, face of the mold and all that, and close up your sprue plate, and you just pour your lead again. It's a certain rhythm. It's a little faster than reloading rhythm is, but at the same time, I'm also usually making for anywhere between 4 to 6 bullets at a throw.
Right. Yeah. I tell you something that I've run into, because of course I'll sell reloading equipment, and we do some classes on stuff, help people out. But I have just, I call it combating. I get every week I'll get at least 2 people contact me, and they want to purchase. They're brand new to reloading, and they want to purchase like they may have seen some of my videos, and they want to purchase a progressive reloading press right out the gate, and that's what they want. And I had so many people, and I got to spend so much time discussing this with people that I made a video specifically addressing why they need to start with a single stage or like a T-style turret press or something like that. And I guess one of the things that the turning point I found for a lot of people is that in their mind they view it as a succession, that they don't want to start with the single stage and work their way up. And whenever I explain to them that even if you're the best reloader in the world and you have a progressive press, you still probably have and use on a regular basis your single stage or your turret press to augment your progressive press. And once I get that through to them and they understand that they're going to use that single stage or that turret press forever as well, that bit of information tends to get them over that hump and get them to accept starting with a turret or a single stage. But that's one of the worst mistakes I see.
Mace, may I say something here?
Absolutely.
You're talking about me. I'm Jim Fleming. Everybody knows who I am. And,
right.
12,000 members. I created the reloading room for one man, me and someone else, and now we're up to 12,000 members. I'm the guy you're talking about. I'm not the best reloader in the world, but I'm one of the best known reloaders of the world, and I have exactly what you're talking about. I have a Lee, a good old-fashioned Lee classic turret press, and I use it for doing stuff like my Precision 308 ammo, and I use my Dillon 550, 550 rounds an hour is what you're supposed to be able to make, and I use my my Dillon 550 just as regular as I use my Lee. I have both presses. I started out with the Lee, and I graduated up to the Dillon. What you're talking about is a good reloader's procedure. You start out single stage. You have to learn to reload well first. Then after you learn to reload well, then you can learn to reload rapidly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Preaching to the choir, guys. Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, but that's an important topic because, like Mace says, I've had a few people that wanted to get into reloading, and they wanted to, that's the thing is they see the big shiny multi-stage and the fact that, oh, I can reload so fast. Well,
I think what it is too is perception. I think what it is a perception that reloading is a means to the end, and the end is to shoot fast. You know what? Us guys that reload and reload quite a bit and learn to reload well, we view reloading as not a chore, but it's just, I don't know how to say this, but it is an end in its own self. A lot of guys talk about and joke about the fact that they empty breast just to reload. They don't reload to they can give themselves something to shoot. They shoot to take and give them stuff for reload.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the truth. It is. I hadn't thought about it like that, but that's absolutely true.
When I go to any of the stores or anything, I'm looking at what they've got for ammo. Like, okay, do I have enough brass for that? Do I have enough brass for that? And I'll buy ammunition just to get more brass. And it's like, okay, so I gotta go to the range and empty the brass. So I've got more brass to reload with, and that's the fun part. So
I along those lines, and this is like confessions. I feel like I should hold a candle and light someone else's candle here. I have ended up getting a bucket of range brass, and ended up with a whole bunch of some caliber that I did not have a gun for, did not have dies for, nor consumable, nothing for it. And I ended up buying a set of dies, buying bullets and powder and primers for it, and loaded up a whole bunch of ammunition that I don't even have a doggone gun to shoot it with. And I bought everything just because I had all this shiny brass, and rather than trade it or sell it, I just ended up loading up a whole bunch of it just because I could. That's one more die set that I have in my tool belt over here, that when I walk in and I look at my reloading area, I've got another set of dies there that I can call upon if I want to. I don't know. It's a sickness.
That's funny.
Nothing wrong with that.
I run the Lee Loadmaster. Then I've got a Lyman turret, and at any given time, I'll have different single stage presses on my bench. I'll go and I'll get vintage or older single stage or turret presses, refurbish them, and then I always try and keep a single stage or a turret press, and whatever, whether it be a little powder dropper, I will put together a kit, a beginner kit, for people that are just getting into it or something like that. Sometimes I'll loan out a kit to people that are local that are wanting to try it out. I'll loan out some stuff to them and let them try it out and see how they like it, and then come back. I bought the Loadmaster because I wanted, so many people want to buy that because it's the least expensive of your progressive presses. I wanted, if I was going to sell it, I wanted to know it, and it seems to be the one that was the most cantankerous, that it had the most quirks to its operation. So I bought it specifically so I could learn it. If I'm going to sell it, I need to be able to know how to teach people and how to answer the questions. And it has proven to be, cantankerous. I say that it's the reloading press for a tinkerer. If you enjoy constantly staying on top of things and tinkering with it and messing with it, it's a great press and it's fast. But if you're someone that wants to minimize headache and wants something that is just going to, once you get it set up, it's just going to work, buy a Hornady or a Dillon. And that's worked out well for me, as advice for people. But things are always changing. But I don't know. It's definitely been a challenge learning that press and getting it where it was always functioning. But again, that's part. I mean, I guess these guys that are just trying to jump into it, there's just so much going on a progressive press for someone to, a lot of guys will get behind a single stage press. That just they'll throw out their decapping pins. They'll ram it in, and then they'll run 10, 15 cases with the spent primer still in it, because they didn't even realize they had broke the decapping pin. So how do they think that they're going to stay ahead of 5 or 6 things going on at once when they are losing track of one thing? And every single person that I've had that argument and that talk with, they have contacted me back maybe a month or a few weeks later and been like, you were right, because they started loading with their single stage, and they found out what we already know.
Well, Mace, you were talking about decapping, running in several cases without a decapping pin. I've actually taught myself to take and observe everything that's supposed to happen. When that primer pops out of that case, I actually look for that primer. That's the thing that, well, of course, too, I've got a lot of experience, but the point is, I've taught myself to watch for every detail. If something doesn't happen, almost instantly I catch it.
Right. You even hear that primer drop. For me and my setup, I'll hear it. But it's that audio, or it's that recognition of something happening.
Right.
You get that rhythm, like what you're saying, it. But that just comes with experience, and there's no way for these people in general to get experience other than calling on people that have already done it They can read books till they're blue in the face. They can get on the internet, but there's no substitution for having a mentor, having someone that you can call on, having a resource like the Reloading Podcast, the Reloading Room. It's invaluable because there's not, most of the guys, these older guys that reload, they stay to themselves. You may catch them at the range, but you don't have really access to anything. Most of your local gun stores now, they don't carry reloading stuff anymore. Even the big guys don't carry reloading stuff anymore. And so it's great that there are resources like what you guys are doing here.
My LGS dropped their reloading gear.
Yeah,
hate that. But it's their equipment is money they had to borrow, and if they're not making money on that equipment, if they're not moving it where they take and pay back the money they borrowed and so on and so forth, it's costing them interest.
Right.
It's really coming down to the bottom line, the almighty dollar.
Yeah, our Gander Mountain here in Madison, there used to be two, then they consolidated them into one.
Right.
Moved it slightly out of the city limits of Madison, because Madison's one of those, ridiculous cities that thinks by having a law stating you can't sell handguns means you're not going to have any handgun crime. So
sounds like Chicago to me, but we're getting into politics, shouldn't we?
Yeah, no, they moved it out of the city limits. They moved it out of the city limits of Madison so they could sell handguns. Then they put in a shooting range. Nice. When they did all this remodeling to the new place, they went from having 3 aisles of reloading stuff to now half an aisle.
Yeah.
So they don't carry any presses. The only thing they carry in the store is some powder, some primers, and shotgun wads, and that's pretty much about it. They don't really carry any other reloading stuff. So yeah, it's not just in your area; it's happening everywhere that they're slowly but surely. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's so much available online now that the local stores don't seem to be able to necessarily compete. Now, Cabela's and Bass Pros still seem to keep a lot of their reloading stuff.
The one thing that I find myself, when I get dealer cost, I buy from a lot of wholesalers and a lot of manufacturers. There's a couple of companies here local that do sell powder and components and stuff, and I find myself, I buy a lot of powder and primers from the local guys because they're already getting in enough that they're spreading the hazmat fee out. And so for even someone such as myself, very rarely have I ever had a big enough order that it warranted me paying that hazmat fee, even at dealer cost. And so, that is one area that I think that they might be able to do okay. But, hey, guys, I'm going to have to hop off here. I'm not going to hijack your conversation any longer. I'll show you what I was talking about and what brought me into this. This is that the Lee Wilson deburr. It will do the outside of your case mounts there, and then of course the inside. You guys know, you've seen these. More for any of the viewers that may be watching. But what I'll do is just take that pointed side and go in, and you can see that one there has it was a military style crimp that's in there, and that fits right in there into the small, and it goes in the large also, and just by hand a couple of turns and your crimp's removed, and it puts a nice bevel on it. It's real quick, simple, and it's worked well for me. I like, for myself, I like using this better than the Swedgers because I like the way that the primer seems to go in a little bit more firm with just doing this, just knocking that edge off, rather than the Swedgers. I found, maybe it's just me and the way I'm using it, but I found sometimes it's almost like my pocket gets almost too big in the mouth there from swedging it. I may be not using it 100% right, but I just found I like doing that by hand a little better.
Mace, excuse me for interrupting you.
No.
I like the way you had that case in that, the 300 blackout case there. I like the way you had that primer, or that deburring tool in the case mouth. Mike, that was exactly what I was talking about. Can we bring Mace's image back up? Because now I just see his logo.
That,
but anyway.
like that right there?
No, I'm looking at your logo.
Can you see me now?
I'm looking at your Team KLR Concepts logo. I can't see you.
Well, it's probably because of the connection. If we drop down so much bandwidth, it'll just go to the logo instead of the video.
Okay. No, but anyway,
we'll see here in a minute.
Now, well, anyway, what I was talking about was if we can bring your image back up, slowly hold that case in the case up and put the deburring tool in the mouth of the case very gently. That's what I was talking about for starting brass out, and I liked the way you went and put that deburring tool in the primer. Yes, that's it. That's exactly what I was asking for. That's how you started out, but you don't want to do that excessively. You don't want to take a lot of metal away. You just want a yes, perfect, perfect. Thank you, Mace. I appreciate you doing that for me.
Because you're not trying to remove a bunch of metal. You're just trying to put a chamfer on it. Just a little bit of one. It works out really good. I've seen people try and use a drill bit.
Right.
But the drill bits are designed to cut, whereas these tools are designed, the tool angle is such that it's not really going to cut, it just scrapes. So it works out real good. But well, guys, I got to hop off here, and it was good talking to you, and we'll catch up with you maybe next time.
All right. Thanks so much.
Mace.
You're welcome back anytime.
Good luck and good job. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
It was nice of him to hop on.
Yes, sir, it was. That was Mace Ward, Team KLR Concepts. The gentleman is out of Tennessee, and I've had a couple extensive conversations with him. He's a good man. He's a good man.
So we were talking as he was showing us there another way to clean out the primer pockets.
Yeah, to take the crimp out of the military crimp, to take and remove that sharp square edge. It simply refuses to allow primers to be properly seated.
So now that we've got the military crimp cleared out, what do we want to do next?
Well, we're actually ready to start seating primers now. We were talking about the various priming tools. That would be the Sinclair International, the RCBS style, the bench tools that you can use for seating primers off the press. We talked about our Lee Auto Primes, and you said there's a Lee Auto Prime XTR with a diamond-shaped primer reservoir.
Yeah, that's the new one. And then you had mentioned about the Sinclair. I've got links for both of those in the show notes.
Okay. And the RCBS does sell one. And but now that one there, it's nice because it uses the RCBS shell holders themselves. Same press. The press shell holder goes in your press, also snaps right into the priming tool. Now, the one disadvantage about the Lee Auto Prime system is it's a specially designed shell holder. It only works in the Lee Auto Prime system. It will not work in your press.
Yeah, that's the only drawback to that. The nice thing about the XR, though, is it is in the previous versions of the Auto Prime, they had problems where it wouldn't necessarily seat certain primer companies properly, and there'd be issues. You'd either have it seated too deep or too shallow, and you'd have problems. They did address that in the XR, so now it will seat all the primers. But yeah, you do need the separate set of shell holders. I'll find out how much they are. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's a nice setup, but yeah, there is that extra cost of the shell holders. So
when I bought them, I bought the entire set. It was like a 12-piece set. I paid $15 or something of that nature, but that was quite a few years ago. One nice thing about these shell holders, folks, they don't wear out.
It's currently $16.99 for the shell holder set. That's through Brownells.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, that's where we're at. We're ready to start putting components into our brass. We've polished the brass. We've trimmed our brass. We've deburred our brass. We've removed the primer crimp, and we're actually ready to start stuffing things into it. We started out by discussing primer seating tools. So the next step after that would be to charge the case.
Correct.
Everyone is generally, most of the reloaders are talking about reloading 5.56/223 Remington cases, and I know they're not interchangeable, but trust me, they're close enough. Physically, the cases are exactly the same. It's in the lead of the chamber that the differences are. But anyway, for reloading, most of the folks are reloading 300 Blackout or the 5.56 cartridge. So let's just continue with that. The next thing we need to do is we need to discuss how we're going to get the powder into the case.
One question that I get asked a lot, I honestly don't know. For the military style priming,
yes, sir.
Is there a way, you know, the Burden priming has the 2 different holes, and it's got the whole different setup. Is there a way that that can be used? It can be used for reloading? Is there a way to convert that over? I mean, do you end up drilling out the bottom of the shell to create a larger primer firing hole? Or is that pretty much, if you come across that, you just toss them?
Well, Mike, I've been reloading since the early 80s. Okay, and I'm also a bit of a machinist by trade. I've been a machinist since 1978 when I first started my apprenticeship. Okay, so I know I've handled quite a bit of Berdan brass, and I've handled lots of Boxer prime brass. And yes, you can reload Berdan brass. You have to take a tool that works on the same principle as a can opener, and you have to take and dig a sharp metal tool into the primer itself. You destroy the primer each time. Of course, it's fired, so that doesn't matter. But you actually pry the primer upwards and out of the case to re-prime it. But anyway, but then you have that anvil on the inside of the case. That was what you're actually talking about. That has to be removed, for one thing, to take and put a Boxer primer in. Otherwise, it simply physically won't fit. The second part of the issue is you've got 2 off-center, equidistant flash holes that have, you know, they're actually piercing the bottom of the web of the case, the web of the head. Okay, now you take and you're going to add a 3rd hole in the middle. You're physically weakening that head of the case by, number 1, removing the anvil that's integral to the case, and it's part of the structure of the brass of the head of the case. And you're going to remove that, and then you're going to take and put a flash hole in, a larger Boxer prime flash hole in, and so now you got 3 holes in the head of your case. It is technically possible, but it's absolutely impractical as far as I'm concerned.
Not something that you want to do unless you absolutely find yourself in that position where you need to reuse the brass.
Well, yeah, that's the SHTF stuff. You know, the contingency stuff, the when the balloon goes up kind of stuff. And that's when you have the time. But it's the same time, to do that, you have to take and have a lathe of some kind or another. And you have to have collets to hold tapered brass. You have to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you will weaken this stuff, and then it gets unsafe.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of a question, and like I said, I didn't really know the answer to. So
it's a good question. It's a fair question, and it deserves a right and proper answer.
And that's why we're here, is to cover those questions and make sure that we're giving the proper answers. So we're here to help make sure that people are doing this safely. And if there's something that, you know, is borderline, then, you know, we're going to make sure that everybody knows that, hey, this is not a recommended procedure.
Well, it's certainly possible, but in my opinion, it's absolutely not practical. Besides that, if you were to look at my scrap brass bucket, you'll see that 90% of it is filled with Berdan prime brass.
Okay.
I treat Berdan prime brass as scrap brass. And I've got some 5.56, I've got some 7.62 by 54R. Most of my brass is 7.62 by 54R, most of my Berdan brass. And I simply just I have yet to take it to the scrapyard. Oh, by the way, there's a little tidbit for you.
Yeah.
Used primers, used fired primers. they are considered to be brass. They are made of brass, both the anvil and the cup. And you can take and recycle those. So, folks, don't just don't just sweep up your primers when you're done reloading and throw them away. Put them in your brass bucket. It's considered dirty brass, but they are yellow brass.
That's something I never realized.
Yep,
that's a good tip.
You know, it's like having a bucket of gravel versus a bucket of sand. Which is better packed? Well, you know what? You can use those primers to fill in the cracks between each piece of brass.
Exactly. Pretty much covers what we wanted to cover tonight, which was priming.
I'm laughing because it's like, you know, Mike didn't want to say it, but I'll say it for him. Us reloaders, we're the original recyclers.
That's right. And hunters are the original conservationists.
That's right.
We contribute billions every year to conservation, but we don't ever get any credit for it. So keep that in mind when you're out there. Every license you buy, actually even just regular shooters, every bullet you buy, every pound of powder, every stack of primers, everything of brass, anything to do with firearms, anything to do with fishing, there's a little act called the Pittman-Robertson Act. And that ensures that all of this stuff that we buy for our fun hobbies helps contribute to saving wildlife. A lot more than anybody ever realizes.
That's exactly right. And it's a certain portion of the taxes that are collected that are dedicated towards conservation and the promotion of publicly owned shooting ranges and publicly owned hunting lands. You know, I live really close to one of the largest state game lands in the state of Pennsylvania, and something like 28,000 acres. And it's just incredible. You don't think about it, the land's just sitting there, but you know what? That conservation officer that goes in there on horseback, he's got to be paid, and that horse has got to be upkept. Money from the Pittman-Robertson Act takes care of that.
And any sort of road improvements that they do through there, or your state parks, so your national parks, any and all the stuff that's done with that. Fish and Wildlife Service, their whole salary comes from that. Park Service, their whole salaries come from that.
There's another point too. You said state parks. There's also state forest, and I do mean that as a distinct and separate entity from
Correct.
State Park Service.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about politics, and here we are.
No, we're not talking about politics. We're talking about how
Facts, that's right.
we help with conservation. And,
yep, that's right.
You know, I know quite a few shooters that never realized that. They said they've never bought a hunting license in their life, and I said, well, it doesn't matter. Every time you buy a gun, every time you buy ammo, you're still contributing. So it was set up a long time ago, and it's one of those things that we all benefit from now, and we continue to, shall we say, pay it forward, to use a popular term nowadays. Every time you guys or girls are out there buying a 50-round box of 22 or anything like that, it really truly is helping the conservation cause.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you know what that means. Everybody needs to go buy more ammo and go shoot more often.
Buy components. Reload your own ammo. Everybody should know how to reload.
Indeed. And if you if all you have is rimfire and you don't have any way to reload, then go buy some centerfire.
Yep, that works. That's how it starts.
There's no such thing as having too many guns. Just doesn't happen. You can't have too many firearms.
Well, your budget dictates otherwise.
So does my wife, but that's beside the point.
Mike, this has been a good podcast.
Yes, indeed.
I apologize for stuttering a while ago, but I got a little disorganized in my thinking. But it was nice. By the way, I want to take and give a big shout out to Mace Ward. I appreciate you coming in. That's Team KLR Concepts is the name of his organization and business. He's about training. He's about training with firearms.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely enjoyed having them on, and we're definitely looking for more people to join this conversation. So if you guys are watching this podcast and you want to hop on, we try to, Jim and I try to schedule this. It's every other Sunday night, somewhere between usually 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock Eastern time, depending on what we've got going on. But shoot us a message on Google Plus, or the rest of the contact information is all going to be on the show notes. Shoot us a message. We'll make sure we keep you in the loop and try and get you on with us. We'd love to have more people joining this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Jim, I know you've had a really busy, long travel day, so I'll let you go so you can go wind down for the rest of the night.
All right. Everybody, remember, you got to reload. You got to reload, man.
Absolutely.
It's a perishable skill.
Reloading is recycling.
That's right. Reloading is green.
That's right. Reloading is green.
That's not from your corroded brass either.
No. No, not from corroded brass or anything else. Reloading is green because we are saving the planet one cartridge at a time.
That was weak and lame. Shame on you, Mike.
You should come on. That could be our new tagline. Saving the planet one cartridge at a time.
Oh, yeah. You know what? When we get this tagline stuff working. My tagline was everybody should learn how to reload, but you know what? I like yours better. All right. I'm going to say good night, Mike. You can say good night, Jim.
Good night, Jim.
Good night, Mike.